call today. Today we have some Adobe Workfront experts, Lucinda Parish and Marc Fletcher, with us. Thank you guys for joining us. I just want to kick this off with some quick bios. I'm Payton Henry. I'm the marketing specialist at 3Share, and I've been working at 3Share for a little bit over a year and a half now. So you guys can go ahead and do your names and quick bios.
Lucinda, ladies first.
Thank you. Apologies, I've got a lot of noise going on outside the window, so I might need to leap up and close it. Lucinda Parish, I am Adobe Workfront Partner Enablement Manager. I have a long history with Workfront, starting off 5 years ago when I was a customer at a retail bank in the UK. Loved it so much, thought I'm going to shape my career around this product, so became a partner, implemented it at 2 more companies, and here I am now helping others understand the beauty of Workfront.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lucinda. Marc Fletcher, I am the Workfront product specialist here at 3Share, and I joined 3Share just over 6 months ago now, so beginning of January. And I've got about 4 years Workfront implementation experience, and I'm a very hands-on system administrator as well. And I primarily worked with marketing agencies and implementing Workfront into those businesses. Obviously, we can use it in much wider areas as well, which I'm sure we'll cover today.
All right, yeah, thank you guys for taking the time to be here today. I'm going to kick this off with a quick demo video. So let's pull that up.
Say I'm a marketer at an online travel agency. I've been tasked with growing bookings by 30%. People want to truly connect to the destinations they've been dreaming of. An integrated social and digital campaign promoting our package deals as workations might work well. I've got to get buy-in from executive leadership. So I compare a few different what-if scenarios in Workfront to make sure budget, resources, and project plans sync with strategy. Insights show we can increase bookings by 30% while staying on budget and cutting down on resource conflicts if we put 10 more people on the project. I get the thumbs up and can assign the right people to the right tasks using defined templates. All team members have eyes on the project from start to finish, so there's no getting bogged down in the messy middle. We're all connected to the what, how, why, and the when. And we can see that our work matters. Content creation goes off without a hitch because creative work happens and stays in creative tools. We add comments and updates to Workfront tasks directly from Creative Cloud. But asset creation is just the start because Workfront integrates with Adobe Experience Manager. We can store, auto-tag, and publish our content with ease. In fact, we can feed it right into Marketo Engage to activate an email nurture program that delivers the workation offer to our target audience segments. Adobe Analytics funnels insights into Workfront in real time, so I can see how many bookings we've captured. I can also see how each of the campaign assets perform, what's working, what's not, and how we can improve. I'm happy to report the Workation campaign was a huge success. We exceeded our 30% booking goal. To celebrate, I'm off to enjoy a workation of my own. I think Maui is calling my name this time, because with Workfront, work flows from anywhere.
And then do you guys have any thoughts to share on the video, on the demo video before we start?
I think from my side, as I said, having known Workfront as a product for 5 years, it used to be a standalone product, and it's still absolutely brilliant as a standalone work management product. But one of the main reasons that Adobe purchased Workfront, so over 2 years ago now, was to actually link all its other products together. And that's what I really like seeing in this video. You see Workfront, how beautiful it is on its own, but actually connecting with Creative Cloud, with AEM, with our other products to really make a journey like that simple. I also love the fact that we've used the vacation story there. I think it makes it much more appealing to look at. But obviously, it isn't just for marketing campaigns that are promoting vacations. It's for, we have a number of different use cases. So we know one company, their biggest users is security, but often PMO, operational comms, other departments are using it as well.
Yeah, from my side, I mean, Lucinda's obviously got much greater detail on where Workfront's being used outside of the sort of the marketing industry that I've been mostly involved with. But for me, I can still recall 2 years ago when it was announced that Adobe were buying Workfront, and my immediate thought was, finally, right, now we're getting to the right place where I think businesses need to be. You know, prior to my Workfront life, I used to work in publishing sector in newspapers, and we would use Adobe products, but there was nothing that was linked in, and we could do the work with those products, but we had nothing to plan the work with that sat within that framework. And it's really good to see that. Just looking in that video, it's what I foresaw 2 years ago when Adobe purchased Workfront is now coming to fruition, where we have the seamless sort of end-to-end process using all of the Adobe products to help businesses and to be able to deliver work. So yeah, really excited about it, and it's nice to see that it's only taken 2 years to get to this point. So it doesn't sound you could say, oh, that's a long time, but actually when we look at technology and the integration processes that are in place around these products, I think they've done a brilliant job of implementing it and delivering it within 2 years.
All right. So let's just jump right in. What would you guys say the definition of a content supply chain is?
It's such a good question. I feel like content supply chain has almost become a buzz phrase at the moment. If we think back to 5-6 years ago, perhaps a bit longer, agile was the buzz phrase. So everyone's like, are you agile? And there's agile with a capital A or agile without a capital A. And did we really know what agile was? And it's the same with the content supply chain. I think in really simple terms, it is something. So let's start right from ideation through to delivery and beyond, storage and analysis. Everything should run smoothly, and all the products you're using to do that should be talking to each other, should be playing nicely. So basically, when I come up with an idea, I want to be able to put into a platform. I'll give a banking analogy here from my marketing days background. I want to be able to put into some form of technology what my name is, what my request is, what product it's for, when I need it to go live, all that other essential data. And I don't ever want to have to type that in again. So I type it in once, and throughout that journey, it's being passed along the chain, that information. Any metadata attached to an asset, again, is being carried right the way through. So for example, in AEM assets, if we have metadata attached, that will come into Workfront, that will follow through into Creative Cloud. Or if we're creating a new asset, so we might be starting in Workfront, we're putting all the metadata in there. So we're capturing a piece of content for our homepage about this product. All that metadata is carried right the way through as well. So for me, that's a simple definition of a content supply chain. Type it once, through it goes. Mark?
Yep, absolutely agree. And I think, in today's digital age, where speed to market is absolutely key. But equally, information is vitally important. The content supply chain to me really is about it's holding the information for all the sum parts that make up that entire workflow. So as you were saying, Lucinda, that you've got the metadata that comes into AEM, but equally, if we've got an asset that's gone through an approval process or a proofing process, through Workfront, we want to be able to capture, well, when was it approved, who signed it off, when was it signed off, what is the wider sort of context around that piece of work. Equally, it's also reuse and reusing products and saving time in redoing work that you may not necessarily have to. So utilizing something like AEM, where you now have that metadata, later on down the line, you might say, oh, I remember we did a campaign 2 years ago and we had some assets around that. How easy can we find that? And if we've got a lot of metadata around that information that was captured at the time, it's much easier to put it back in again, reuse and redeploy it, and it's costing us a lot less money. So for me, a content supply chain really is around efficiency, it's around reuse, it's around being able to get speed to market really, really quickly in whichever industry you work in. Obviously, as I said, I come back from the marketing side of things, but this could be in finance, it could be in industry, it could be in product, it could be in services. It makes no difference. So long as the supply chain fits your business and you deploy it the right way, there's just benefits tenfold doing that.
So why do you guys think it's important, or why do you think people need it? Why is it important to have a content supply chain defined?
I'll start off with a statistic. We do a lot of work with a really fantastic organization called the In-House Agencies Leaders Club. And what that is basically, as we're probably aware, a lot of marketing departments now in-house all their own creative work. So rather than using an external agency, they've created an internal agency. And it was the first kind of a survey that was done of its kind. But what was absolutely fascinating for me was 78% of them said they don't have their digital asset management system, their DAM, and their work management system connected. And a further 75% said they don't have those connected to other products as well. So I've already said about, it's saving so much time about just keying in information once. But there's also a risk there with your data. So if you are, say, for example, you've got something in AEM, you're having to download it, and then you're uploading it to Workfront or any other platform, there's a risk of losing that data. Now, if you work in a regulated industry, such as financial services, that can be quite a huge risk. But at a more analytical level, that data is what's needed to drive awareness of how well you're performing as a department, how well your marketing activity is going. So I think there's absolutely the time saving for the people. Personally, that's the side that I'm most interested in. But if we're looking at a risk point of view as well, there is danger of losing data, losing assets, things not being stored in one central location, and no actual system of record of that activity. Mark, you've probably got more to add from a technological point of view.
Yeah, I do. I absolutely completely agree with what you were saying there, Lucinda. And I think for me as well, is where you have a lot of siloed industries or external platforms that you're interlinking, you've got 4 systems to administer. You've got 4 systems to keep secure. You've got 4 systems that you need to integrate. You've got 4 systems that you need to manage that integration. And they can talk differently and they have different languages, and it becomes a very complex animal or even a juggling act just to maintain and balance everything to make sure it all works within your business. And equally, people and users will find workarounds when there's problems. And the biggest thing I fear is when you start removing assets or features out of those platforms. So downloading to your desktop, once that's out of your system, you have no trackability to where it goes or what happens to it or what's been done to it. So it's important, I think, for a content supply chain to have a content supply chain that is flexible enough that it negates the need for people to work off a desktop or to download to a desktop or push into a third-party application to deliver or to enhance or to manipulate or whatever it is. So from my perspective, that's why content supply chain is important. But it does need to be robust enough that it can support all your needs. But equally, it's around security. It's around just the management from a technical side of things, and cost. 4 or 5 different platforms, all different costs, then licensing values gets expensive. So.
But absolutely, Mark, to carry on from that, it's reminded me that I always think the best process is when you don't even know it's a process. And one of the things I love most about the content supply chain is in Creative Cloud, we now have a plugin. Now, I started life as a designer, so I can say this: designers do not want to, not that they don't want to follow processes, they don't want to record what they've been doing. They just want to come into a creative environment, create something else. Gosh, I love those days. But what we've done with our plugin is they can be in their creative environment. So Photoshop, for example, and they can just open a panel. There's a list of everything that they have to do. Their assets are there. So they'll just pull it out, they'll update it, they'll put it back in, and they might record how much time they spent on it. What they might not even know, and they don't even need to know, is that is them talking to Workfront. So that little window that appears for them, that's Workfront, and that's feeding everything back through to everybody else that they're working with.
Yep, it's creatives don't like change. They like their safe place. Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro. Someone's have to go do something and others says then you've lost them. And those plugins are fantastic. I've used them and it's just very simple to install, and the benefit it brings in a sense of being able to assign work to a creative. They don't have to go anywhere. They can just access it from this safe place and they can do the work that they need to do.
And on that point, it does allow people to do the job that they are most skilled at. So as you say, creatives, I can do what they do. We shouldn't be expecting them to have to go into Workfront and having to fill out all that detail. So, and again, when I was in the department, it allowed the people who were meant to be focusing on strategic work to have that time back to focus on strategic work. I guess in simple terms, we were divided up into those focusing on strategy and those focusing on operations, like getting the stuff done. But when we'd have a campaign come through the door, it was just all hands on deck. So everybody was just working on this campaign. But if you've got the right process and the right content supply chain in place, people are able to do the job that they are skilled to do, that they signed up for, if you like.
Yes, it seems like having that content supply chain defined out really helps streamline the process and, keeps everybody working on what they're good at. So what would you say are the most basic steps for defining your business's content supply chain?
I would start with looking at all the technology you've got in place at the moment. Again, like I say, sort of 5-6 years ago, maybe a bit before, but transformation was another buzzword. We were going through the digital transformation. There was marketing transformation, technology transformation, everything was being transformed. And as a result, we discovered, and that's us as marketeers, that there were platforms that could support us with things. They could take a lot of that admin donkey work out so we could do what we needed to do. And it almost became who's got the most. So we would collect things in our MarTech stack, and it might be a bit, our MarTech stacks, we've got 50 products in there. But that was really complicated, as Marc said as well, having to understand one platform, then understand the other, and also having to remember where you do which piece of work. So I'd really recommend taking a look at your tech stack and the technology that you're using at the moment. So what have you got there and what is it doing? And is it still serving its purpose? So an audit is really needed if that hasn't been done before. But then those products that you have got, are you fully utilizing them? Do they talk to each other? And I think there's a real opportunity to, the ones that are good are worth keeping, and the ones that perhaps aren't so good, are you doing things over there that you could be centralizing? And are they actually talking to each other? So these days, definitely less is more. The less items in your tech stack, the better. And I kind of think of a bit of an old-fashioned example. Already Facebook is old-fashioned, but you kind of go into Facebook and you're in Facebook and you can do everything you want from there. You can talk to people, you can look at events, it'll take you through to somewhere else. And we've really got used to that now, to be able to go into one place to do what we need, rather than I do this here, I do this here. We just want to log in, see what we've got to do and get on with it.
Absolutely.
Defining it.
Yeah, I think simplicity is key. I think one, simplicity, and two is understand your business and what you want to get from the products within your tech stack. It's do you need these different silos or these different platforms? Why are they essential? Is there something that you can, either in the Adobe framework or maybe externally, that can meet all of your needs? I think I see. I think it's, it was a comment made in an Adobe event that I went through last year, and it was all shiny. It's kind of like, a lot of sort of CTOs and things like that can see, oh, their competitors using that product. Oh, that's really good. That must be good. We need to have it. It's shiny. And then as soon as it lands on the desk, it sort of gets a bit tarnished, and then it becomes a bind and a grind to your tech stack. I think it's really important to not look at what's shiny and what's new or what's the buzzword. It's really understand what your business needs, but not only what it needs now, what it needs in the future. So making sure that the products and the tech stack that you're putting together can support your growth, can support robustness, can support changes in the market, and all of those weird, wonderful business things. So for me, it's one, understand your business and the technology you need, and then two, when you're implementing and putting that in place, keep it simple. Make sure that your end users aren't having to fight the technology that you've put in place and the processes that you've put in place, because it just makes life hard and you don't get the buy-in. So Lucinda was saying, where you have everything in one place, like Facebook, people become very settled. They feel at home, and they are able to do what they need to do. If you're fighting technology, it's okay for me. I love fighting technology because I'm a complete techno animal. But a lot of people are very, very scared of technology. They just want to be able to do what they need to do to get their job done. And it's important that in any technology that we deliver, that we take that to heart. We make life easy for them and let them feel that they're not having to fight the processes that we put in place.
Yeah, sounds like keeping it simple is the best method to defining the process.
Yes.
So what's important about looking at your content creation workflows as more of a content supply chain rather than just a bunch of requests or needs from a creative team?
Do you want to take that one, Mark? I know we both started off in creative environments, didn't we? But I've mentioned
we did. For me personally, I think that where the content supply chain really brings value is having that complete end-to-end audit. You're being able to capture everything from the beginning of the process, for example, a brief, and the approvals around that, the cost values, the budgeting, the planning, the delivery, the amount of time and energy and effort that's been put in play to produce those pieces of work, the actual pieces of work themselves, who created them, when were they created, what was the direction around that, who signed it off, etc., etc. Then where's it been, once it goes into AIM, where's it been published? How many times has it been published? So you get all of that lovely, wonderful analytical data that comes together with it. And that's really where I see a massive benefit with the content supply chain, because it's keeping things all together in one place. Again, if you're going into a siloed approach or into different platforms, some stuff gets lost or it doesn't support it, and then you only get half the information, and it becomes an unholy mess. Absolutely, content supply chain, data. That's what you want, because you can always pull it back when you need it. So, Lucinda, your thoughts?
Well, you mentioned a word very quickly, but as we know, so critical: approvals, review and approvals. In that creative world, it's something that can be so time consuming. I can give an example at the bank of one item that went around 24 times for approval. When we implemented Workfront, because we were able to get everybody in the same place at the same time, and I'm talking sort of virtually on screen, so they could all go into that document. So our average was 4 circulations per item. Our goal was always to get that down to 2. And within 12 weeks of using it, we'd managed to get it down to 3. So that's quite a big shift if you think about it. But one of the great things is before using a platform like Workfront, and this is in the days when we were all in the office, but we had barriers in place. So what would happen was we would send something out for approval, and the marketing manager would own that. They would then give it to the agency account manager, who would then divide it between the creative or art working team, depending on availability. So I used to call it sort of an egg timer. So you've got everybody here, but then between the two, you're just funneling here, one person, and out here. Sounds a great process. When you're all in an office together, say, for example, if the account manager had dared to get a cup of coffee or go to the restroom, someone would see the design and be like, we couldn't quickly just do this, could you? And then you're kind of losing that control. One of the great things we can do with Workfront is put an automated process in place so that cannot happen. So until it's actually gone through the account manager, it cannot go on to the design team, and same the other way around, which just really helped. I think when you've got a number of stakeholders, we might have up to 15 people approving something. It's really not fair for that just to bypass everybody else and go directly back to the designer. And that was happening. So I think in the creative world, that's a real blessing. And we had an in-house agency, so it was another organization. We got them using Workfront as well. And they loved it because of the consistency. Every brief they got from us was exactly the same in exactly the same format. Every time they sent an asset back to us, it was getting approved in the same way, or they didn't even need to know what was going on there. We would just give it back to them for the amend. So a real game changer there.
So you mentioned about a time like before you used Workfront and how many cycles of approvals you had to go through. So would you say there's much of a difference between implementing a new system versus like updating an old system that has already been in place?
I'm going to say something quickly, and then I'm going to hand over to Mark, who's much more technical than I am. But a hint or a tip, I would say, is we were using two systems at the bank, and we wanted to put everything into Workfront. What we actually did was we had a firm cutoff date. So I can remember, I'll never forget it. 1st of November, we went live with Workfront. What we said was every brief before then will go through the old system, and it will continue in the old system. And every brief from then will be in Workfront. So when we're talking about actual work management, I think it'd be very difficult to transfer one over to the two. If we're looking at merging dams or transferring dams, I think that's a much bigger question. But that's just one hack I would give. Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's always going to be a challenge if you're taking an old system and trying to get it into new, but it is achievable. I think a lot of technology out there to be able to do the mappings and to be able to produce and put that information into your unit. I mean, a great product that's also part of the Adobe and the Workfront offering is Fusion, which is I like to think of it as a codeless way of programming and putting automations together. It's very modularized and it's very. I mean, if an idiot like me can actually work with it, then I think anyone can work with it. And I use it a lot within the Workfront framework to do automations within the system itself. But I've seen some just recently at the Adobe Summit 2 weeks ago here in London. I think it was BT did a presentation on how they use it almost in an AI sense. It was fantastic to see how they've done it. So it just shows the power of just that platform alone, and it's a brilliant piece of software. But yeah, I think from an old new, again, I think that's more of a business decision. If you're looking at Workfront or you're looking at the content supply chain, there's got to be a reason and justification you're looking for it. Because if your technology and the processes and the platforms that you're using at the moment are working for you, you wouldn't really want to move anywhere else. Because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I think what I've seen though is you do get, and Fusion does do it really well, is where we're seeing, for example, you may want to keep your finance technology and your payroll technology. Maybe that's really working for you. You want to keep that, but you want to take information from that and feed it into your PPM solution like Workfront. Then you can do that through, you can do it through Fusion, but you can also do it through direct API. One of the best things I've found with Workfront is that the API is well publicized. They're not shy on people having access to the API library. So you can either develop your own API technology or integration pieces, or you could use Fusion, or you could use anything else really that supports APIs. So there's plenty of options available to you, or to any business who wants to take advantage, shall we say, of the content supply chain. But again, maybe they want to feed in or pull from other external stacks that are important, certainly around maybe finance and payroll and PR and HR platforms. So that's entirely possible as well, and we've seen this quite regularly.
I think whether it's a new implementation or updating the existing one or changing systems, the three things that make the magic happen are people, process, and technology. So in all of these, enable your people. So let them work as a unit to say actually what they need. I've worked on implementations where you've got people leading that implementation within the organization and almost second guessing what those people want. So it's, really get them involved. Like, what's not working for you at the moment in whatever you're doing? How, we say what's not working for you. And then we look at how we can kind of fix that. But so people, you've got the right ones in place. Where the biggest focus probably needs to be isn't technology, it's process. So again, when was the last time you reviewed your processes? Are they working? Are you doing it like that because you've always done it that way? What steps can you take out? Do you need more steps adding in? So you've got the right people, you've let them create the right processes, and then you put it into your technology, or then you upgrade your technology or the way you're working with it, or when you're changing systems, you think about that as well. But I really think if you're making, it really shouldn't start with, right, we need to optimize Workfront, we need to get more out of Workfront. What it actually is you need to look at your, how are you doing your planning, your resources, your work management with the people, change the processes, put it into technology. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also on top of that as well is, there isn't a rule that says that you have to go in hard and fast and check and actually and put this amazing system all in place in one go. If you're going through a period of change management, you can slowly merge and build the product in. So you might want to look at let's just look at the project management side of things, get that up and running, and standardize into a nice process, and then let's look at our brief requests and our approval process, and then start expanding that further, and then start looking, now let's bring it into asset management and bring that into AEM. So it doesn't have to be that you start from the end. You start at the beginning and slowly build your way up. If the business will provide for that. But I know business sometimes be a bit impatient. But that's what I would say. Because also I think as well is that it takes time to learn technology. It takes time to understand what that technology can do for you. And by taking it slow and almost methodical in some ways, it helps to be able to really fully understand the power of those platforms and what they can do for your business, and then to be able to then look at, as Lucinda was saying, look at your processes. Are they efficient? But in order to, I guess, understand whether what you have in place now is the best that you can do, or is there something better, is equally to understand the technology that you're working with and what it can do for you. Because I often find, especially with Workfront, there are about 5 different ways that you can achieve the same thing. Same thing I used to say about Photoshop. There's the same way you can create the same image. Although nowadays with Firefly, you just push a button, it creates it for you. So it's taking all the fun out of it. But we won't go down that.
That's a whole other webinar, Mark, which I'd love to talk about sometime.
But very, very well said, guys. So what resources does one generally need to kind of turn your content supply chain from like the dream phase on paper into reality?
Mark, I know you love this one. We've spoken about this many times. Have the floor.
Oh, thank you, Lucinda. This is one of my favorite subjects, really, and it's a great question because it's all dependent on how you invest your time and your resources into what you need delivered. I've seen and I've experienced businesses that have been, we want it now, and we want it immediately, and one person or 2 people, and you're just spinning and you're bouncing from one thing to another, and that doesn't work. I think once you've got it on paper, I think you really need to sort of look at it and understand, in order to say achieve a 6-month delivery or a 10-month delivery or a 12-month delivery, is what do we need in order to achieve that by way of resource. So do you need to get skilled people in that understand Workfront so that you can deploy quicker, or do you look at it from a perspective of why don't we identify some people within our organization that are, they enjoy technology, they like to get their hands under the bonnet of technology. Let's get them trained up. And I have to say that Adobe do some fantastic online training. You can either go through their training program and organize some virtual training courses, or you can go onto their website. The amount of content that I've learned around Workfront purely just by going in and looking at the documentation. Another really advantageous asset that I feel as well as part of that support base is that there is a and I'm trying to remember, it's almost like a forum, like a discussion board that they have within I'm trying to remember what they call it. It's the experience manager, experience league. That's it. So the Adobe Experience League, and this is a platform that's open to customers that you can go into and you can ask a question. But it's not the Adobe experts that will come back to you. It's the experts, and it's the entire Adobe community. It's the community of people that are using the product that you are trying to onboard, or you're trying to learn, or you're trying to figure out how something works. And you can get answers within a couple of minutes from doing that. So from that perspective, it's a case of do you get your own teams internally trained up? And get them the basics, and then let them go forward and have a couple of months just to play with it or to build it and to understand. At the same time, you can do the discovery. You can understand the processes that you want to bring in and how you want those to fit in, and looking at the design. But equally, you're getting your people spooled up and understanding what's the difference between the company object and a group object, and how do teams and objects, how does a team work with relation to resource planning, etc., etc. So they get all those fundamental basics in the way, in their brain, and then you can build from that. Realistically, in my opinion, in order to become, I would say, proficient and confident in building within Workfront, you're probably looking at an investment of about 6 months. To really get a good granular knowledge. You could do it earlier if you're a really clever person. I'm dumb, so it just takes me forever to get these things in my head. So for me, it took about 6 months. However, you could, there is the option of using an Adobe partner. So, for example, like 3Share, who I work for, we're experts in what we do, AEM and workshop. Workfront, so we can help deploy and get your business up and running on those products much quicker than it would say internally. However, we wouldn't just come along and go, right, there you go, it's all in, see you later, bye. It's a case of we would have a team, your own internal team. We would educate, we would document, and we provide support until you've got a team in place in-house that are completely proficient in being able to not only manage what's already there, but then to be able to grow and to mature that product going forward as well, without our lovely assistants. So that's my comment. Lucinda, I'm sure you've got some comments as well.
Just a couple of things I want to pick up on what you said about absolutely using a partner. My first 2 implementations, I didn't. We got the support from Workfront. It was before they were part of Adobe, but I had a day job. I was working 100% at my day job, and I was implementing Workfront as well. And I had a team, and we'd all sort of be, on calls or on Teams calls at sort of 10 o'clock at night, which was great for the first month or so because we were really excited about it. But again, I often talk about burnout. We can't deliver to the best of our ability if we're burnt out. There's a reason why the working day is 9 to 5. So the third time I did it at this huge global group of agencies, we got a partner involved, and it just made such a difference. Even though we were a team of people who knew what Workfront was about, knew how to do it, the benefits of a partner is like Marc said, Marc says they're with you for life or for the duration, and that will really help you with that value realization. So Workfront will never become stale. What you set up on day one will just constantly grow and grow and grow. And of course, partners have all that knowledge of what everybody else is doing with Workfront. When I did it the first 2 times, I kind of thought what I was doing was probably right and it worked for us, but who knows what I didn't know. So I think absolutely from that point. And there was something else you said, Marc, that I was going to pick up on, which I'm sure we'll come back to.
Sure. Just to come back to your point as well. I've done Workfront, implementation almost single-handedly, and it nearly killed me. I would love to have a partner to be able to collaborate with, to collude with in implementing, these products. And also, I think a value in it as well is that I see it as a collaboration, really, rather than you sort of, as a business, say, right, there you go, partner, you get it on, get it sorted. I see it more as a collaboration between the 2 businesses and the teams of people within those 2, within the business and within the partner agency, because what I think happens, as Lucinda was saying as well, is that she was working with a partner. She knew Workfront. She'd worked with it. She'd had a couple of years behind it. But I think where there's benefit in that is that what you have is you've got people that have got they're like-minded around the product, but you've got different expertise. And when you're brainstorming a design or a process or a workflow or trying to figure out a solution to a problem, you've just got all this expert knowledge. And sometimes people can come at things from a different way, and you haven't thought about that. And you go, or they might say something, which is the case with Lucinda a little moment ago, and now I can't remember, that, you suddenly they say something, you go, hang on a minute, that's the penny, that's the missing piece that I've had in my brain of how I can fix this. And I'd be surprised at how often that happens. And suddenly something that's been really complex. Normally I'll go for a 5K run if I can't figure something out. But if that doesn't work, then I go and collude with Lucinda or people at Adobe, and then suddenly that someone will say something and the penny drops, and then we know how to do that. And I think that's one of the other benefits of having a partner, is that you now have a collection of expertise, even if you have people in-house that might have been working with the platform for 6, 8, 9, 2 years, whatever.
And I've remembered my other point. I've written it on my hand, which is something I tell my children off for doing, but it was around training. So absolutely, if you're working with a partner, they're going to help you get trained up. And as Marc said, we have so much support material. So you'll go through the self-training as well, but then your partner will support you with that. But our goal is for you to be self-sufficient in Workfront. And so what I mean by that is you have a project template. I won't go into too much detail about that. But if you want to make a change on that project template, you can do that yourself. You don't have to ask your partner or Adobe to make that change for you, put in a ticket, wait for the SLA, wait to get that done. You can do it yourself there and then. When we launched Workfront, we actually had what we called a sort of a practice month. So we said to people, start using Workfront. We're not going to turn on the reporting. Just get to know Workfront, do your work in Workfront. And it was great because, and we said, and help us, what haven't we got quite right? And people would say to us things like, you've got a typo here, you've got the wrong product name there. Of course, it wasn't going to be 100% perfect on day one, but literally they could tell us that and we could fix it there and then, which was great. As time went on, we'd be slightly organized. We'd put them all into a work request and then do it. But I think with Workfront, it really is, we have everything there that you need to be self-sufficient. And again, as Marc said, if you can't get hold of someone to support you, you're able to go straight onto the website and get that information. And again, what that means is you're getting value for money out of your partner. So you're not paying them to correct a typo. They're actually looking at your instance and how you could then evolve it and be taking it to the next level.
Yeah, I really like what you said, Marc, about collaboration and that kind of, two heads are better than one type of mentality. Yep. That's really helpful in an implementation kind of process. So we talked earlier in this webinar about being in periods of like change management. So what's your experience, Lucinda and Marc, with addressing resistance to change for something like an implementation of Workfront?
Yeah, again, really, really good question. I think there's kind of two areas I find with when it comes to change management. One is the expectation of the senior sponsors, and they're paying for the product. And they want to see the return on investment as quickly as possible. So it's managing that expectation. And then secondly, it's also the end user expectation. We spoke earlier around, how creators don't really like change. They like to be in their nice, warm, cozy Photoshop or Illustrator environments and things like that. So it's how do we facilitate that so that we can put something in that doesn't necessarily affect them, allows them to do the work that they need to do and to do their creative stuff without adding extra workload or stress to them. So there's that aspect, and then equally, as I said, from the more the sponsor side of things. In my personal experience, as I said, I have come across businesses being quite impatient, wanting to get results done very, very quickly, and I think that it goes back to a lack of understanding, one, of the product, two, of the complexity it can take to try and put in very stringent workflows or complex workflows or complex metrics that they want in reporting, etc. So those are kind of the challenges we face, and I think but that's going to be in any technology that you implement, where you will have people don't like change, simple as that, and those that are spending the money want to see the change as quickly as possible. It's a bit of like just juggling it. But I think for me, what I have found, I've worked in a variety of different softwares for the last, 8-9 years. And for me, one of the things that was outstanding, I would say, when it came to Workfront, and this is pre-Adobe acquisition, and I have to say, since Adobe acquired it, it's got better, significantly, just better and better and better. But even at that stage, prior to the Adobe acquisition, Workfront was, it's a standard solution. It has a standard interface and things like that, but it's the customization you can do in the back end that I really enjoy. It's being able to go, okay, well, we haven't got a field for, I don't know, we want to look at, battery color. If we're a supplier of something and we don't have a field for that, what we can use? You just create one in Workfront and you add it to where you need to add it, and that's metadata. It's there, it exists. It can push it out on your API, and it's literally a couple of seconds to create that. So it's the flexibility, and it's the I don't want to say the customization in the sense that you can do lovely things on the AIs and make it look pretty and tailor it and things like that. It's more the customization you can do in the back end that captures the data that you need. As I mentioned earlier on, data. So that's a South African accent that comes out. Okay, I think in America it's data. So it's for me, that's where I saw real value. In other products that I've worked with, it was you had to write XML code, or you had to get a developer involved to put that in place. I can do that from this chair within 30 seconds, and I think that's a huge benefit when it comes to to the technology and not just Workfront's offering. AEM does the same as well. I know this conversation is very Workfront centric, but when we look at the content supply chain as well, I think the two products really for me that are sort of core to the offering is Workfront for all of the work management, the approvals, the validations, the work management, the timesheeting, resource management, all of that kind of stuff all sits within that framework. And then you've got the AEM side. That's your DAM and your asset management, and likewise sites as well, so you can push it to your website. So but those two for me are key. Everything else, there is other connectors coming up. I think there is one, Lucinda, if I remember correctly, that's coming out now for Marketo. I think that's coming in line. So there you go, you heard it from me. That I know that there is now a connector that's shortly to come and play, or might already be in play around Marketo. So if you're doing social media content, there, or you want to get statistics, it's there. So there's loads of things. Lucinda.
I think for me it's really simple when we're talking about that change management. It is build it with the people, not for the people. So we started off with not necessarily a great long list of names, but all the people or the personas we were going to have to connect with. We then put them into, I was going to say buckets, but we put them into categories. And then we worked out how we were going to communicate and work with those people, but absolutely build it with the people, not for the people.
Yeah. Great. That's I'm going to steal that. Next time
have it, Mark. That's for free.
That was a good one. So now I'm going to go into, if you guys are done, I'm going to go into some questions. So one of the ones we had was, why do you need to enforce a full-blown process or system to handle simple changes or simple tasks in a document, for example?
Should I take that one?
Yeah, you have that.
I don't think you do. I think you can, what you want to do with the system is entirely what you want to do with it. If you don't need a full-blown system in order to do document approvals or, audits and things like that, just capture the information that you need. These processes can be as simple or they can be as complex as you like. It's entirely up to you. That's how I would see it. I think the important thing is that the platform can facilitate both of those approaches. So, in Workfront, you can do, just the approval process it can be as simple as, I'm going to take this document and I'm going to send to that person for approval, and I'm going to do it manually. Or I can automate the whole system and the whole flow, and we can talk about stages, and if it goes to this person, then you can't do anything until it goes to that person. They've approved it, and blah, blah, blah. So entirely. I think it's just understanding what you want and then, put that in play. It doesn't have to be complex though.
Yeah, but we're talking about, say, a simple change to a document or a simple process. I think we always say with Workfront, start small, think big. And when I've worked on things like that in the past, so in fact, this is what happened when, before we used Workfront, we were using another platform. And that was all we wanted it to do. We just wanted to be able to have our approvals in one place. So we had a record of what was approved when. And so we started off with that, and that was great. But then my eyes were opened and I started to think, wouldn't it be great if we could put our brief through there? Wouldn't it be great too? So I will say, even sort of 6 years ago, I was thinking about a content supply chain. If we could get that from our DAM, attach it to the brief, move it all the way through. So I think the thing is, yes, I mean, you could use another platform just for document approval. Our one lasted 2 years before we had to upgrade it with something else, which was obviously Workfront. So, and I think, of course, Workfront does manage those small changes very well. Okay, it might look like it's overpriced, but then when you are at the next stage able to think about the art of the possible and what you could be doing, you've already got the foundation in place there.
Yeah.
And then the next question we have is just about the cost. Is it worth the ROI in your opinion?
I've just sort of alluded to that slightly. I think if you're getting, again, if you're working with a partner, you're going to be getting absolutely the full potential out of Workfront. When I worked at the global group of agencies, gosh, we had 36,000 users in Workfront, and I was just blown away. But we were using every single part of Workfront and really pushing it to the max, using Fusion as well to connect it to things like Workday, Salesforce. It was I was really surprised it wasn't creaking at the seams, but it really wasn't. Workfront was just sort of morphing into something bigger and bigger. But Mark, from the partner side, do you think it's worth the ROI?
I do. I think if you identify the need to have just Workfront AEM, full content supply chain, and you invest in it properly, you will absolutely get the ROI on that tenfold back. I think you will just see some significant benefits from it. That don't go if it's all shiny. I would be cautious. Take your time, understand what it is that you want to achieve through your business and through these products, and then decide early on whether it's going to tick all of those boxes. Because you'll be surprised. I've worked with clients that have, bought Workfront, and then, they've bought the Lamborghini and they expected it to be a Porsche, and it's not a Porsche. And, it's just because they thought, or there's an assumption that it could do all sorts of things, and it didn't. So that's what I would say. Absolutely. If you can identify and you're in agreement that the offerings that come through these products fit your business and they will work for your business, absolutely. And I agree, it is expensive, but you're getting best in class, you're getting best in breed. There's no two ways about that. And certainly Workfront is by far one of the most versatile work management solutions that I've seen.
But Mark, on that subject of ROI, that makes me think about what the amazing proposition that you guys have developed, Swift. How would that work on it? That kind of, it's all about rapid deployment, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So 3Share, we have what's known as Swift, and this is if you're a business that would like to get the benefits and your ROI relatively quickly, then come and talk to us, because we've got our Swift program, which is a rapid deployment to Workfront. We've got a variety of different options that are available depending on the complexity and the needs that you have, but we can do it quite quickly if you've got just a straightforward sort of workflow, or maybe you're just looking at something like, okay, we initially we want to look at onboarding, project management, and proofing. Then we can do that within our Swift offering, and we can get it in very, very quickly for you. And again, as I mentioned earlier on, we provide all the documentation. So we tell you how it's being configured and provide all that documentation. We will train everybody on how to use the system, and likewise your administration guys as well. So as we step away from that deployment, you've got a really nice foundation, and you can just improve and grow from there.
I think Swift is really exciting. It leads me on to sort of talk about something else, but a lot of people having sort of fear of technology, the robots, are they taking over our lives, Gen AI, you know, the way I see it, it's things like Swift, not at all. They're simply doing what machines can do, so humans can do what machines can't. We can actually do the thinking, we can do the talking, the communicating. So I think absolutely for me, automation, Gen AI is just so exciting, because I think, oh, that's going to give me half an hour back a day, you know. So I just think, like you said, you know, let's embrace the future, not be scared of it.
Absolutely.
Well said. All right.
It's just one point. Swift doesn't have Gen AI just yet.
No, but that's what I meant. Just in terms of when we talk about anything, like machines are doing something for you that you used to do yourself. I'm like, yes, please.
Yeah, absolutely. It's no, we're there to help any business, you know, get out the starting blocks, really, I think is what Swift is. It's helping businesses to get out of that starting block and get them up and away and utilizing, as I said, best in breed. So there's no two ways about it, in my opinion.
All right, I think that's it. That's all we have for today. Thank you guys again so much for coming on and taking the time out of your day. It was a great session, very informative. So thank you guys, and see you guys for our next iteration of Evolve with 3Share.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.